Welcome to No Options with Ty Gibson, the show where life's toughest trials become the foundation for your greatest triumphs. Real stories, raw conversations, and the unwavering belief that you were built to overcome. Now, here's your host, Ty Gibson.
Hey guys, I am super excited today. I have a special guest today, and I'll tell you, when I say special, she's someone I've known. Coach, I've known you for a while, but I'm excited to have you on the show today, Coach Vicky Benson. Coach, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, no, I'm really excited, guys. If you're not familiar with Coach Benson, well, one, you haven't been following women's high school basketball because she's been on a great run there. But Coach Benson, I want to say congratulations first of all to this past year. What a great run. I mean, not too many times can you run all the way like that and just get to that one game. But I just want to congratulate you on such a successful year in many ways. But then also, Coach Benson, guys, I mean, she's been in the Austin area most of her career. She played at Concordia Lutheran, went to Concordia Lutheran, and then did a little bit of GA work there. And then she jumped over to McNeil real quick, went over to Bowie, and then Hyde Park. No, Hyde Park
before Bowie. Yeah.
Hyde Park, and then Bowie, and then to Westlake. But I'll tell you, while the stint at Hyde Park, she in 2004 was the TAP state championship. So congratulations on that, and we'll talk a little bit about that down the road. But Coach, I just want to welcome you. And guys, when I talk about Coach Benson as a basketball coach, I know we talk a lot about basketball, but there's so much more behind this than just basketball. So Coach, first of all, welcome again. And I just want to thank you for being here with us. And then I'm going to kick it off, and I'm going to just throw a question out there to you. What got you into coaching?
Oh man, that's the $1 million question, I think, for everybody who does it. I never imagined it's what I would do when I was growing up, and I have no educators, no coaches, no nothing in my family, so it never dawned on me that was like a career path, right? And you go through school and you're just like, I can't wait to get out of here, and I've never left. I've been in school literally my entire life, and so one day I will be out. But I was in college, and I was driven to physical therapy. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a PT. The body fascinates me, and just how it works and how it moves and how when it doesn't work, and the rehab of that. And so that's what I thought I wanted to do. So I went to school, and after, I want to say my first year of finishing up at Concordia, they asked me to work summer camp. And so it was a volleyball, basketball camp that was combined. And so that was the first camp I ever worked. And I absolutely loved it. It was so much fun just watching kids get it, from one day they don't have a clue. And then to all of a sudden by the end of the week, they can do something, that one thing that you've been working on them with all week. And so I thought, man, maybe this is something that I want to do. So I switched my major into education, and I went the secondary route because I knew I wanted to do high school. And there you go. So that became my path, and that's what I did. I worked camps every summer after that. In fact, I got involved with Lone Star Hoop Camp. I don't know if you've heard of that one, Jan Jernberg, who runs Lone Star Hoop, and that's where I actually met my husband, working at Lone Star Camp with Jan.
Oh, that's awesome. And yeah, I mean, and y'all are a basketball family, right? Because your husband Casey was coaching as well, right?
Yeah, he was coaching at Hyde Park at the same time as me. Well, when I met him, he was at Lake Travis with Jan. That's how, the connection there was. And he played for Jan in high school, which was a whole nother part of the story. But yeah, he and I went to Hyde Park at the same time. He left Lake Travis, I left McNeil, and we ended up at Hyde Park. And after a year there, we both became the head coaches. He was the boys coach and I was the girls coach.
Now, what year was that, Coach?
Man, okay, we went to Hyde Park in full time. We started at Hyde Park in 2001. So 2 was we were full time there, coaching head coaches together.
That's awesome. And there's a great story behind that. As I mentioned, you were in 2004, you guys won the TAPS state championship. But Casey on the boys side at Hyde Park had a really successful year as well, right?
Yes. So they even came out and did a story, knew Dennis De La Pena. Love Dennis. Shout out Dennis and his camera crew. I still just great relationship with those guys. But they came out and did a story because we were both going to the semifinals. We're going to the state tournament, husband and wife, new head coaches. I mean, if 0102 was my first year as a head coach, and we had gone to the Final Four the year before and lost. And so we were back, and Casey was going as well. And, Colton, our oldest, was not even 2 at the time. And he was already at our practice with this little tight golden corner shooting baskets. And so they were like, we got to come do a story on this family. Like, who are they? So that was really fun. But yeah, we both ended up going to the state championship, and we won and they lost.
I knew that. I knew the results there, and it was kind of funny. You mentioned at Hyde Park, you guys, the girls and the guys, rode the same bus to the state championship. Tell a little bit about that story, because that's a very interesting one.
Well, I mean, we rode the same bus everywhere, because at Hyde Park, boys and girls played at the same location, and so that was there. It was just, when you kind of look back on your life and you think about different seasons, right? We have, not to be cliche, we're talking about sports, but there are different seasons of life too. And we were newlyweds. We, had our first baby there, with that. And just to be able to always be together was just such a unique, special time. It's not like that now, but back then and where we were able to do that. And it was just a really huge blessing for our family to be able to be together. But yeah, so we ride everywhere together, but we rode to the state championship on a charter bus, and, the Final Four. So the semifinal game, we were all there. The guys had a super late game. The game before theirs went to overtime, and it got to the point where we were, the girls, we had like an early game the next day. So I remember going, babe, we want to stay and watch and support your team, but my team is trying to win a state championship. We got to go to bed. So the driver, I don't even know if we stayed till halftime. They were winning when we left. We felt pretty confident they're going to win. I'm like, I got to get these girls home. So we drive them back to the hotel. They get in bed. Lo and behold, Casey's game goes really late. His best defensive player ends up in the emergency room that night with a ruptured spleen from an impact trying to hustle and save a loose ball, because he was just that dedicated. So he was in the ER with him until probably 3:00 in the morning. And so this was the worst scenario for them. And so anyway, we had the first game of the day for the championship, and they had the game right after ours. So that, his team was toast after the game before, and being worried about their teammate, which wasn't able to play in the state championship. And Casey always says, like, if he had been healthy, we'd have won. They lost by 9. So we played the first game. We won the championship. We're celebrating. We're like, let's go. The boys are going to do it. And then they lost. So we had to ride the bus back home with this mopey, dopey team and my husband. And I looked at him on the ride, and I was like, look, I want to respect your sorrow right now, but we are not, these girls are not going to sit here on eggshells because your team lost. Like, we all need to celebrate what we just did. Yeah. So he's like, you're right. My bad. So it was quite funny.
That's
and
fun.
Our teams were so close, like the girls and the boys. It really was like a big family. It was a lot of fun. Those were really special days and special memories.
I bet it was, but what a cool story and great memory, as you said. I mean, but to have the girls really wanting to celebrate, but also the boys were just not quite as excited. But what a cool story, and again, congratulations on that, and would have been really cool if you guys could have both pulled that one off. But
I know.
Yeah, but well, and so great success there, and what I guess the question would be, I mean, you spent after Concordia, you was a GA. What made you go high school coaching versus college coaching?
High school was a really, really influential time on my life, and I think if I may be wrong when I say this, but I think a lot of people in education, specifically coaching, you tend to really want to be where it was most impactful for you. Not that college wasn't, but I just had a lot going on in my life when I was in high school, and basketball was my outlet. Like, it was the one place that I could be that, I don't want to say I was in control, because I wasn't entirely, but I was able to work as hard as I wanted to, or put as much in as I wanted to, and there was nothing that anybody could do to stop me from doing that. And so I was really drawn to that time period for kids, and if maybe I could be a positive influence or a good role model for them during a time that might be really crucial and it's, impactful for them. That's why I chose that. People ask me now, like, do you want to go coach in college? And no, like, I don't have a desire to do that. God could change my heart, because we can never say never. I've learned that lesson, but I don't feel drawn to that in any way at all.
That's great that that you're in the right place, and obviously you are, and making a difference in these young girls. But you're right. I think we're all kind of, I think when we find our purpose and stuff like that, a lot of times it's something that we obviously went through, or time in our life that we really draw us back to that time. So it's awesome that you're in that space and you found that, right? And so obviously you've influenced a lot of young women over the years, and from a coach, and you continue to do that. But you also, while you were at McNeil, you started a tournament. But you talk about, I've heard you talk about this, about it's so much more than just the game. There's so much going on in these young girls and young students, just in general, during that time period. And for basketball to be that source that you can, minister to these kids, you can pour into them. But you not only do that as on the court, but you also started a tournament that kind of had that framework. Tell us a little bit about that tournament and where it went and where it's at today.
So it's actually at Bowie that I started the tournament. When I was at Bowie. And, my first year at Bowie, I had been at Hyde Park for a long time. And at a private school, you just have so many more open opportunities to share whatever's on your heart with them. Like, it's encouraged to do Bible studies and to pray with kids. It's not like that when you get to the public school. And so, this is just kind of a side note, but it was very difficult for me at my first year at Bowie to relearn how to connect, without sharing scripture. Like, we would have a motivational talk before the game, and I'm in the locker room and I'm just like at a loss because I'm so used to sharing a scripture to challenge the girls, with whatever part of season we were in. And it just was hard to relearn that. But anyway, so my first year at Bowie, we ran a tournament and we co-hosted with the boys, and it was we each had 8 teams that would come to the tournament. And I inherited that tournament. And I love Coach Collier. He is like a second dad, maybe even like a grandfather figure to Colton. I mean, that's my son that played for him. But I just didn't want to have a tournament with the boys. I wanted to break off, and the timing of the tournament wasn't good for what I wanted in our schedule. And I'm like, we'll do this for a year, but next year, Coach, I want to branch away. And he's a creature of habit, so it was a little bit difficult for him at first to agree. But I said, no, Coach, this is what I'm going to do. So ironically, I coached volleyball at Bowie also. I was the varsity assistant. Our head coach at the time was Jason Landers, who I don't know if you know him or not, but he passed away. I say it was maybe my 4th year at Bowie, maybe sooner. He had cancer, and he died in the summer. And I actually head coached volleyball and basketball for 1 year after his passing, which we can talk about later. But my first year there, I was his assistant, and he always did the Pearland tournament for volleyball. So I went obviously, and we're sitting there, and it was amazing because the Pearland tournament is, I want to say, gosh, this is really testing my memory. I want to say it was like a breast cancer awareness event, and they did an opening ceremony. And, all the teams that were there got a shout out, and they could make signs. And I just thought, man, that's so cool. Like, that's what I want to do with this tournament that we're going to start. I want to do something more than basketball, but I want it to be super impactful for coaches, for players, for parents, for the community. So we started brainstorming what that could look like. And, I came up with the mental health aspect of it, which, Ty, you got to go back with me how many years ago that was. So I've been at Westlake for 4, 12 at Bowie. So over 15 years ago, when mental health was not a popular conversation topic, and athletes were not permitted to really share that and afraid to. And I had dealt with my own secret, private pain and hurt and mental health situation in high school. And I thought, man, if I could have just expressed that at the time, if I could have known that it was okay not to be okay, and I could have gone to my coaches, or I could have gone to someone and felt it was okay, and I wouldn't be labeled or cast aside or whatever. And that my issue lasted through college into my first couple years of marriage. And I think, gosh, what if we can start that conversation sooner? And so mental health awareness became the tagline of the tournament. I thought, okay, well, what are we going to name it? And I came up with Beautiful Classic, spelled Beyou, beautiful. And just my struggles were insecurity. I didn't feel pretty. I felt fat and ugly and not as good as everybody else, and just all those insecurities I have, to where now I am the only me there is, which makes me a classic version of me. And so that's the you know, a lot of people call it the Beautiful Tournament or I'm like, I always correct them. It's Beautiful Classic. And I really don't care if you want to call it that, but that is what it's called. So, you know, because I don't want it.
Yeah.
I want these girls to feel special, and classic is just a great word. You know, it's classy and it's individual and it's unique. And so that there's so much more that goes with it, but that's the gist of where it started and how the idea came about. And, you know, that first year, like we came up with a cycle of conversation and talk. So at opening ceremonies, we used to do a dinner, and all the teams could come back the first night and we would do a dinner, which was really great because the girls could interact with other teams and I could have time to have conversation and stuff. But what I found was it was just really hard for teams to commit to go to the dinner at night when they're trying to do their own team bonding stuff and they don't really know what this is yet, you know. Or UT women games, a lot of times they're playing on Thursday night and they're going to a game. And so there were just a lot of things that kept the majority of coming. I think we would, like the first year we did the tournament, we had 12 teams. And of the 12 teams, 6 of them came to the dinner, which was great. We had 6, us being one of them. And then, you know, we grew pretty quickly to 16 teams. And then we went to 24, and then we went to 32. And so it just became a lot to feed 32 teams of people also and have a space that big.
Yeah.
So we started doing a Thursday after the first game. Like all the locations have the first game of the day, and then bam, opening ceremonies happens, and we take a little break, introduce everyone, welcome everybody, give a small talk, and then we go on and finish playing and have welcome baskets that have we just shower them with gifts, you know. And Kendra Scott is one of our sponsors and donates so generously, you know, coaches' gifts. They used to donate a piece of jewelry to every participant. But then at one point they were just like, we just can't do it anymore. But they continue to donate to the coaches. So they give coaches gifts, which is really great. But anyhow, we decided to rotate the topics every 4 years, start back over, because ideally if you're coming back, we want it to be new. And eventually we stopped doing individual topics and just focused on mental health in general, you know, and the mental wellness. And when I say mental health, I don't want to lead on to say that everybody's dealing with depression or anxiety or like a clinical diagnosed thing. We're talking about how can you train your mind to be a healthy mental athlete just as much as you're training your muscles and your skills and your abilities. Because if you neglect that part, there's going to be some point during your playing career, if not multiple times, where you feel a low. And just because you're feeling a low doesn't mean you're depressed or you have an anxiety issue, or you may, but you may just be going through a really hard time of life, as me. That was my situation. I didn't have clinical depression. I didn't struggle with anxiety. I just had a life situation, and I can go into that whenever you want, but I had a life situation that just had me feeling inadequate, insecure, fearful for my life, and, you know, I needed help. I needed someone to be able to tell what was going on so that I could get out of that state of mind. And
Coach, I'm going to interrupt right there because I think it's really important what you're just saying. Mm-hmm. Yes, I mean, and please share as much as you want, because I feel like what you're talking about right now is how our mind is the most, you mentioned a while ago, the most powerful tool we have, right? And a lot of times it gets neglected.
Yeah.
For instance, basketball, you guys are, you know, you're working on the shots and this and that, but sometimes we got to think about the mind, right? And I know it wasn't until in my adulthood that I realized I've got to take care of mentally. I've got to take care of myself so that I can help others. Yeah. I always talk about it. There's a reason the oxygen drops down and they tell you to put it on yourself before you help others, right? Mm-hmm. Because we've got to take care of ourselves. But if you don't mind, I think that's a crucial point, because there's a lot of people that go through life and a lot of students, and I mean I have a 15-year-old daughter right now that's in the middle of athletics, and you see it all the time. I think these girls sometimes just kind of don't want to talk about it, or don't have the opportunity to talk about it. Mm-hmm. So yes, please share, because I think it's such an important part of what we do and what's going on in our world.
Yeah, so I'll share with you my story and then just some research that I've been doing lately. So just to help. But so for me, when I was in high school, my parents were awesome. When I say I went through some stuff in life, it had nothing to do with my family. They were amazing. I mean, I love my parents are dear. My dad and I were super close. He passed away almost, like, I guess it's been a year and a half now, and that was really hard. Super close family unit and amazing parents, very supportive. And so I just want to put that out there. It had nothing to do with them, but I was probably 10 maybe when I started to feel that I didn't look like everybody else I was around. You know, I didn't have my siblings, or my older siblings, I have two older sisters. They weren't athletes. They didn't do sports. Nobody in my family did. My dad did way back in the days, did a lot of things, but so when I had this desire to be a basketball player, no one knows where it came. Like, why? What is she doing? What is this sport we have to learn about? So I found that the girls that I was around didn't look like me, you know, and I didn't look like an athlete when I was young. Like, I had never trained, I had never worked out, and so I had a little pot belly, you know, hadn't stretched out yet, and I just felt so insecure in my own skin. And I remember at 10 years old, being at dinner and looking at my plate and not wanting to eat my food, because if I don't eat that, then I won't look like this anymore. I don't know where I learned that. I don't know where that idea came from. I didn't hang around anybody who talked about being overweight or not wanting to eat. It just, I can't eat this, because if I don't eat this, then I will lose weight, and then I'll be ready to be this basketball player. And so fast forward in high school, I just was a late bloomer. I was young for my grade. My birthday's in August, and so I started kindergarten like right at 5, you know, and just was young, and it took me a while. And when I was in middle school, I got cut from the basketball team in 7th grade. I didn't make the team. I was like devastated. Like, what do I do? You know, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And so there came that well, you have to lose weight, and you have to look a certain way, and you've got to do this and that. So 8th grade comes around, I made the B team. I was ecstatic. I was not very good, not coordinated, not athletic at all. Got to high school, made the freshman team. I got cut my sophomore year. That was really hard, because I didn't know what else I was going to do. Simultaneously, my sophomore year, I got into a relationship with a boy that was not healthy. When, you know, I don't remember when we started dating, but we did. It was a friend of one of my sisters, and we started dating. And as the relationship went on, months into the relationship, about the same time I got cut from the basketball team, I was just in a low, and the relationship turned, not because of that, it just was going to go this way anyways, abusive. And so I didn't have basketball to fall back on, because I wasn't on the team. I didn't feel like I could tell anybody what was going on, because if I tell my parents, they're going to be disappointed that I would end up in a situation like this. And Ty, I don't know if you have experience with abuse or know people who have been in that situation, but you own it as it's your fault. Like, at that time of my life, you couldn't have told me it wasn't my fault. Right now, I clearly know it was not my fault, but at the time, I thought that's what I deserved. And I just couldn't talk about it. And, you know, I had Coach Farney, I played for Coach Farney. I know you did a podcast with her recently, and it was awesome. But when I got cut from the team, I went back to meet with her, and I asked her, I have to have this. And she didn't know what was going on in my life. But I asked her with a serious sense of urgency, like, what can I do, because I'm coming back next year? And she kind of, I'm sure inside she laughed, like, nobody comes back. What do you get, girl? It's over. You know, move on. But she gave me this long list of things to do. One of those was run track. Never thought about running track. I ran cross country because we had to at Georgetown, but we didn't have to. It was highly encouraged. So I decided to go. I went to run track, and I fell in love with the work. Track was, I just needed something that nobody could tell me I couldn't do it. You know what I mean? Because I was in this relationship where I was told, you're fat, you need to lose weight, I'm going to drop you off and make you walk home. Not just verbally abusive, it became physically abusive as well. I can't even begin to tell you the things that went on, but I needed basketball, and so I did everything that Coach Farney had asked me to do, and I came back the next year and I made the team and I continued on and played in college and doing all what I do now. And she tells that story, like she doesn't know all of the things that I was going through during the time, but she knows the impact that had on me. And so anyway, what I learned through all of that, and that relationship lasted through my first year in college. I finally broke free of that, finally got out of that situation and began to heal, mentally through all of that abuse. But what I learned coming back and making the team my junior year, my senior year, if you love something enough, nobody can take that love from you. Being cut didn't take my love away. I didn't say, well, screw Coach Farney. Sorry for my, I didn't do that. I didn't blame Coach Farney. Blame anybody. It was, okay, well, what can I control in this situation? And I was able to work not harder, but smarter. There was no question I was always a hard worker. Like, it wasn't about that. And that's, a lot of girls struggle. Even, I would love to tell you, you talked about I've had this impact on players. I have. All of it hasn't been positive. I would love to say that every girl who's ever gone through one of the programs over the last 25 years that I've been involved with has left and had the best experience ever and loved basketball and felt loved by me. But that's not true, because there are so many things that are attacking our minds. Social media is so much bigger now than before. I never would have thought to blame Coach Farney back in those days. It was, okay, she said, I need to do these things. I'm going to do these things. And I learned through being under her program what hard work really means and looks like, what smart work is, what a team is, what failure is, what success is, what perseverance actually means. Those are invaluable lessons that I've taken into my life that I would never have traded. I wouldn't want to go back and have it be any other way. But today, the first point of a finger is at us as a coach. And, there's no one's fault. It just is the way our society is now with social media. And you can say whatever you want to say about somebody if you believe, if your perception is your reality, you can say whatever you want. And people will believe it because they saw it on social media. So I saw it. It was on Instagram, so it must be true. And, one of the things we talk about with athletes being mentally healthy, the coaches have to be also. And there has to be a streamline from the athletic director check in on the coaching staff, because you can't go chop down a tree without sharpening your blade. Like, you can go with the dull axe and it's going to take you days and months and you might get it done, but you're going to be spent by the time it's over. Just go sharpen the blade and you can do it a lot faster and more efficient. And if we're not doing that, you mentioned it earlier about your own self, like if you're not taking care of you, you don't put the oxygen on, how can you help someone else breathe?
Right.
Same thing for us as coaches. And the mental healthiness is a way bigger deal, I think, than our society knows what to do with right now. I'm speaking at an AD summit in Cincinnati in June on this very topic, on the modern athlete and, mental healthiness. And when I was talking to the guy who's bringing me in, I said, because I run the tournament, do all this stuff, like, people think I have all this mental health stuff figured out. Like, I don't, because I still have kids that leave our program because basketball stressed them out too much, Used to be, like I said, for me, basketball was my outlet.
Yeah.
You put me on that court and I can deal with life because I have an outlet. Now, basketball is the life thing kids are dealing with because there's so much pressure and stress on the social media comparison and someone's highlight video that was better than yours, or you don't start, so you don't matter. That's so much of a lie. I admire the team I had this year so much. Sorry, I'm talking a lot, so if you want me to shut up.
No, this is great. This is all good.
This team I had this year, and for those who are watching that may not know, like, we were 40-0 going into the state championship. We didn't lose a single game all year long. And it is not a secret that most games I played 5 kids, maybe 6 in some games. It is not a secret. Would those the rest of the kids on the bench wanted to got minutes. 100%, yes. They would love to have been in the game. And probably some of them still don't understand why there were times that they didn't. But if you ask, like we had 4 seniors that graduated, every one of them said it was so worth it because of the fun they had with their teammates and the experience that they got to go 40-0. They were in practice every day. They were pushing the main group every day. Like, we went to the state championship. That has been done in Westlake in a long time, since Kathy Self's day in the mid-90s, and we got to go. And I mean, I'd like to say that it's because we've built a healthy culture, and people don't understand how important culture building is. That we're talking about our mind and how it's important to train our mind, and it's important to train our jump shot and our footwork and this and that. But if you don't work at your culture every day, you're not, especially today's day, you're not going to be successful. Like, you're not going to win. You're going to find yourself beating your head against the wall every day, wondering why things are the way they are. And I mean, I say that this next year could be a polar opposite. We could build culture all day and it could blow up in our face. If the wrong piece is inserted to the puzzle, it could be toxic. And so we do culture classes at Westlake. I do a culture, I was doing it at Bowie the last couple years I was there, but really at Westlake, I just have so much more freedom to do what I want because I'm only coaching basketball. Like, everywhere I've ever been, I've had to coach 2 sports, which, not that that's a bad thing. I loved it, but to be successful in what I'm trying to do, to just have that one sport to where I can really implement all the things I've ever wanted to do as a head coach has been awesome and very supported. But, we do culture classes where we're teaching the culture and reiterating it over and over again, just like we train ourselves how to shoot free throw. Because I can't just tell a kid, hey, we don't do that here. And then okay. When their voice can become the one telling their teammates, we don't do that here, we've arrived. And sometimes we're there and sometimes we're not, but reminding them of what we do at Westlake. These are our pillars. This is what we do. This is what we do. And like I said, I just admire the team, the girls, so much for buying into the culture of Westlake basketball and being the best supporters of their teammates that they could possibly be. And it's awesome.
You talk about culture, and I mean, it's music to my ears because I love culture. I mean, even from the business side of things with culture, I think culture is critical, right? And I love the fact that you guys are talking about culture classes and talking about it. But you're right. One little, sometimes it just takes one thing to kind of throw that culture out of whack, and so it's a continuous work to keep that culture going. What is it? What would you say is some of the most important things that you do to try to in your teaching of culture? What is if you don't mind, talk about that. You talked about the pillars and stuff, but what are some things that you talk to kids about culture? What is that you pour into them about that? I know there's a lot.
Yeah, I think in my opinion, it's very crucial to empower them to help create the culture expectations so they buy into it more. If I give them a voice and a freedom to add to what we do, and I have to go backwards a little bit to talk about at Westlake. So my first year there, it was pretty toxic, not very healthy, and that's not at all a knock on who was there before me. It was just, one thing can just get in, and that's kind of what had happened at Westlake. And so I knew I had a lot of work to do, to really get it to where it could be a healthy, sustainable, program that people want to be a part of. And so in the spring, after the first season, in that spring, we did our first culture class. I just didn't think going in right at the beginning and doing a culture class was going to impact, because they didn't trust me yet. They don't know me yet. There's no relationship there. They're looking at me. They love their former head coach, as they should. And they're like, who are you? What are you? You came from Bowie. Like, we're in the same district. We don't want to listen to you. It was rough. And so in the spring, after having that season together, we had our first culture class. And what I decided to do with them, it was a shot in the dark, but I think it worked. I created a presentation to show them of just different pictures. It was during the NCAA women's national tournament. And so I tried to find pictures of our team to replicate what I thought would be good for our culture. Couldn't find them. And you'll understand when I tell you what I picked. So I picked these pictures and made collages. And I just asked the girls, what do you see in this picture? You know, instead of telling them communication is important and grit is important and, you know, teammates are important. Instead of telling them those things, I wanted them to come to the conclusion by seeing what was in the pictures. So I had random pictures of all these NCAA players that the girls knew, and it showed them doing something. So the first one I pulled up was a collage, and it was a bunch of pictures of like somebody with a ball pointing and like their mouth was open like that. Like, what are they doing? They're talking. Like, how do you know that? Can't hear them talking. How do you know they're talking? Well, their body language shows it. What about their body language shows it? And then we broke down all these pictures of things that we were not doing. And so I asked them, what do you want to see in this program moving forward? And I told them, I said, some of you are going to be, by the way, I didn't have any seniors that first year. So I had one, but she had a very unfortunate injury prior to the start of the school year, even playing in club. She tore her Achilles. And so she was out. I think she came back for like the last 7 games of the season or something. So I didn't have any seniors in this room. And I asked them, what do you want out of this experience? And I said, if you can articulate what that foundation should be of our culture and start it, you're going to either reap benefits right away, or if you can't figure out what that is, then the years ahead are going to get it. Like, at some point, we're going to get this right. You can be a part of it, or you can watch it when you're gone. But it's going to happen. And they were like, well, no, I want to be a part of it. I'm like, okay, great. So what do we want? So we had seen all these pictures of all kinds of things of the game, and they said, we want our team to look like that. And one of them was, I can't remember what team, LSU or somebody, I can't remember what team it was, but the entire bench was going nuts on something. They're like, we want to look like that. I'm like, okay, well, we got a long ways to look like that because we look like this. So how are we going to get to that? What do we need to get to that? So we talked about, what does it take to celebrate each other? Well, what it takes to celebrate each other is to put aside, I'm better than you. Like, that statement, I'm better than so-and-so, makes you devalue what so-and-so is really good at. If you can't see that what they're really good at, then you don't value them as a teammate. Now, we're not going to be good teammates and we're not going to celebrate each other. So get that narrative of comparison away. Mm-hmm. And let's talk about you. What's the best thing about you? Don't tell me I'm better than I don't want to hear that. Like, what are you really good at? Because that's what so-and-so should be celebrating about you. You know what I mean? So
right.
That narrative has to change a little bit. And so we got to that point. We talked about too, like, we need to be a safe space for one another, which includes trust. If we don't trust each other off the court, we're never going to trust each other on the court, and we are not going to reach this picture you guys want. Like, it's not going to happen. So how do we do that? And they talked about putting the outside to the outside. Like, what happens within our walls is us. And that's so hard because, and I definitely don't want to, I love our parents. Our parents are great. But parents are parents, and parents oftentimes, they can only see theirs, you know? They do what parents don't realize, and they don't mean this intentionally. They're trying to be great supporters of their kid, and they're trying to encourage them and tell them how great they are. Parents oftentimes are the main catalyst in the issues that our players have, because they don't understand what we're talking about here and how important connectivity is and unity is for the whole. You know, the part is not bigger than the whole. And the whole is, if the part is healthy, the whole is healthier for sure. And that's really, 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 really hard. And, you know, if you get in the car after a game, I know this has been beat down forever, but if you get in the car after a game and the first thing mom or dad asks is, why didn't you play? Man, you just single-handedly stuck a knife in the program, you know, unintentionally. And then what does kids say? I don't know. Well, that's not true. The kid knows, but they just don't want to have that conversation. Right. You know what I mean? And so if the same thing is true, like maybe you play a ton, but you didn't score. Why aren't you shooting the ball? Like, there's no level of stopping.
Right.
You know, what even like what is enough? You know, if I were to sit every one of our parents down in our program and say, what do you want for your kid? They're going to say, well, I want her to score 20 points a game, and I want her to play 30 minutes, and I want her to do this. Okay, there aren't enough minutes for everybody to do that. And everybody's not going to score 20, you know, and that's, again, our team this year, like I said, I just admire them so much that they were able to put aside the part for the whole, you know. I mean, we have a super talented team. On any given other team in the city, any one of my kids probably could have been a 20-point scorer. But on this team, they didn't have to, you know, and I had many kids right on the brink of 10 points a game. Like, I had 3 kids that averaged between 9.8 and 10.2. Like, that was the spread on them. I had one that averaged 16 because she rebounded the mess out of the ball and got a lot of putbacks, you know, and then I had another one who averaged 5. That was my starting lineup. And like, but the 5-point a game kid had over 100 assists for the season, you know, so
that was her role.
Yes, and they've bought into this year. This is my role. Next year, my role might be different. But for now, for this team to be successful, this is what I need to do. And when they have that figured out, we're in a great place. But if their parents aren't on board with that, or their trainer, or their AAU coach, or they're not on board with that, it just ruffles it and causes this unnecessary tension. And so, you know, I mean, that's an issue, but, and I'm not saying I'm perfect and I make all the best decisions and stuff. I want to grow and I want to be better every year. Like, I don't want to come into every year like I know it all, because as soon as I do that, I probably need to be done. You know, I go to
for any of us, right? That goes for just life right there. I mean, I think we're not going to grow and get better.
Yes. And this team makes me want to grow more. I mean, they deserve the very best, and I'm not going to shortchange them on the work that I'm going to put in for them. I'm going to work my tail off for this team to have the tools to be as successful as they want or don't want to be. I have to remind them, you know, every year is different, and when kids graduate, you start, even if it's a bunch of returners, which we have a ton of returners, it's a new team. And we have to start over because it's just going to be different. And there's sometimes where they say or do some things, I'm like, nope, that's not going to happen here. You need to come. We got to have another culture class to be reminded. And so, you know.
That is so awesome. I love the culture, and I love what you're pouring in. And I think it's like, you know, it's coaching, obviously we're talking about, but in life in general, you know, I mean, be the best that we can be at whatever we're doing, right? I mean, prepare. In your case, you're coaching. You want to come with your A game so that you can pour to these kids. And I think that's, you know, I think in life sometimes we don't always do that, right? We don't come prepared. We don't come as our best. And I was talking about that with our, you know, just our staff a while back. I talked about, you know, you need to take care of yourself at home, and you need to be there for your family, and all that's absolutely critical. But when we show up as your best. Show up here at your best. And I think I love what you're doing with these kids, and I love that you're teaching that early. And I will tell you, it's exciting, I guess, for this next season to have all these returners. But you mentioned it. It's a new team, even though they're the same people. They may have some different roles to fill. Like you said, you know, this past year she was a point guard and she was doing a lot of assists. She may be next year, but you may need her for a different role, and everybody has a role that they have to play. So but that's awesome, and again, I love. There's so many life lessons in that as well. Now, you talk about the mental health side of it, and again, I love that, because I feel like kids at that age, and thank you for sharing your story, because I think there's more of those stories out there than people realize. Mm-hmm. You know, I think there's probably, you know, again, I have a daughter that's going to be a junior this year, and I know that's going on in their life. You know, a lot of her friends, and I know that stuff's happening, but I don't, you know, you don't always. I'm wondering. I'm hoping somebody's trying to pull that out of them, and I don't know. You know, I love what you guys are doing, and I hope there's more coaches doing what you do for these young athletes. But I think there's a lot of that happening now. So tell us, when is your tournament? Your tournament's coming up in November, right? Is that correct?
November 12th through the 14th. It's always the first full weekend. The first tournament weekend available is when we have it.
So I think you said it's got listed as 12th through the 14th.
Yeah.
But is that tournament full every year, or are you always trying to get new? Is it pretty much stays? I would think it probably stays pretty full.
Yeah, I mean, most people that come, I mean, they get first choice to return. You know, I do the invitations around the state tournament, and then if they decline, then I open it up to the waiting list or people who've been, hey, I want to come in such and such year, keep me in mind. And so we are full. Now, I will say I've had to scale it back at Westlake because we don't have the space and the availability of the gym space we really need there to keep it at 32. So we'll be at 24. Austin High co-hosts with me, so they're a tournament site, which is great because we need their courts. And Coach Richardson over there at Austin High, since he came on, has been happy to be a part of it. And we use one of the courts at the WAC, and so we have the WAC and Westlake, and then Austin High. So, but yeah, we're at 24 teams, and when we get our new facilities, which will happen, I'm not sure the year, but it will happen relatively in the near future, then we can go back to 32. But, you know, people like it. I'm proud to say, and I don't know if it just ends up this way, but I am proud to say that I can probably go back 6 years. The champion of our tournament has either won or been to the state championship. And unfortunately, we were the champion this year, but we beat Lancaster in double overtime at my tournament, and then they beat us in the state championship. So
Wow.
It still proves true. Either one of us could have won that game. I mean, we just happened to be the ones that won. And I even told her after the game, I was like, I hate that we won this one. Because the one that matters, it's always happened this way, is going to be the one at state. Yeah. But anyway, so that's pretty awesome, you know, and then that draws people to want to come. But I don't even care, honestly, about the top teams coming. I mean, that's fun.
Yeah.
I want people there that want the mental health part of it, that they want to be there so that they can take away something for their kids. Like those are the teams I want there. So you'll see sometimes, I mean, people will tell me, oh, we're not good enough to compete in your tournament. I'm like, yes, you are. How do you become the quote, the best, if you don't know what that is?
That's right.
You know, and we talked earlier about, like, I want to be my best when I step into the gym for my kids. Well, you know how I do that is by seeking out the best. Like I would learn from people who have done this, who have the experience, don't be somebody off the street and come tell me how to practice or what to run in a game. Don't do that. You're not helping. That's not helpful. Like I know where I need to go to seek out the people who are doing this right. But if I don't watch that level and I don't seek out that level, how do I know what my team needs? You know? And so I don't know. I've never been like, we're going to go to the best tournament so we can see it.
But that brings up a good point too. We talk about a lot. You know, you're talking about seeking the best and being around the best to be better, right? And again, right. I keep relating it back to life, and you know the old message, right? You know, you are the sum of the 5 people of your surrounding type thing, right? We always are wanting to get ourselves better. I know, you know, as a person, we're talking athletics here and coaching, and which is the world you live in, and I'm around it most of my career. But it's life, right? I mean, we always talk about we've got to get better. We need to be around better role models, better mentors. We need to find those people. Our friendship, our surroundings mean so much to us, right? Our habits are what we end up doing.
Yeah.
You mentioned, you know, and your career just shows that, right? What you was going through in high school and some of the relationship things you dealt with there. Who would have ever thought? Right? But what it did is it really strengthened you, you know, and helped you to become, now look at you now, you're pouring back into these kids because of something we went through. Most of the times, you know, and they talk about purpose being the best of what we have to give others, right? Kind of that's what the, you know, and I think it's so awesome to be able to see people pouring back in from things they went through. But I think it's really life, right? We learn from our mistakes. We learn from, and I don't call it just mistakes, our things we went through, experiences to help others down the road. So, you know, I just encourage people that, just like you, that may see it, but you are determined that you just like going back to Farney and saying, what do I need to do to get better? I think we need more of that. We need more of that, encouraging our kids to not give up, not to just stop. Because again, it goes back to what we're determined in our minds and what we're willing to put to earn what we want, right? I talk about goals all the time, and I do a lot. I used to do these big goals, and now I go down to these daily goal type. I do daily goals, but not only do I do daily goals, sometimes I visualize them. Mm-hmm. You talked about some visualization. You talked about pictures versus telling them. It's kind of the same thing. I try to visualize what that looks like. What does that experience look like today? And I'll tell you, it's been, when I first heard it, I thought that's not. But there's a lot of truth to that. And I think what you're teaching them through visualization and showing them instead of talking. And I think some of that we can all take back for our personal life and go, instead of talking about what we're going to do today as a young coach or as just a young person in the career or student, let's do small steps, right? We can't just say, hey, let's go be the state champions. I mean, just like you came in and did a couple of small things each year, and you're building the program to do it. And that's the same thing with us, I think, in getting better. And I know that the cliche, we talk about this all the time, that 1%. And we talk about it, a lot of people talk about that. But it's very true. Small bites, right? Small things. Small things this summer are to prepare us for this season. Small things today that will prepare us for tomorrow. I mean, and I always challenge people, and I think, it's exactly what you're talking about, coaching people up. But as a person, how do we get better today? What can we do today to get better so that tomorrow we can get a little bit better, and just keep growing? So I love what you're doing, and I love what you're doing at this coaching level. Now, the tournament's an amazing thing. What if you could talk? There's two questions here. If you could, is there anybody in the community? How can anybody help with this tournament? What can we do? How can we get involved? If that's something if you're needing that kind of help, how do we do that?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Thanks for asking that. Well, it's just, God has been so good just to provide sponsorship for the things we want to do. One of the welcome baskets that we give are really, really unique. Maybe there's someone in the community that has something they want to donate to that, in terms of like, maybe it's coupons, or maybe it's actual tangible thing. Those are great things. Covert Auto is our title sponsor, and Covert is so generous. They actually give us a monetary donation, which is great because there are expenses. A lot of the restaurants and stuff, at least in the Westside community, are in-kind sponsors, which is tremendous. They provide food for the hospitality suite, which feeds officials and coaches, and Rudy's is a big donor in that, and Raising Cane's and Chick-fil-A, and I could go on and on with the list of Honeyham. They've really, really come alongside of us. What do you need? Let us know, and they do it. They feed our teams, while we're there. So that's been huge, but there are expenses that go along with it. Officials are tremendously expensive. We're probably paying $20,000 a year for them. So anything helps. We have different levels of sponsorships, in kind or by money. Waterboy Graphics was so generous a couple years ago to come in and really help us rebrand with signage and stuff, which was crucial, to just making it feel like a really neat event. So, there's definitely sponsorship opportunities available in different levels. Speakers, for a while, many years, we've had like a professional athlete come and speak, a female. I think that's important, that it's a female. There are great men and great mentors and great men in my life and whatnot, but I do think it's valuable for women to be involved. And I do want to make a statement about that too. So, going back to the whole comparison thing, I think that our society has taught women to be in comparison with one another. Literally since we're born, I think we're learned to compare ourselves to other women, which is what causes our insecurities and our lack of confidence, because we're constantly trying to be somebody we're not. When we can value our own bringing to the table, that's where confidence comes from. Obviously, confidence comes from preparation, but if I can walk into a room and not worry about being like someone else, then I'm going to create valuable, whether it be a network, friendships, colleagues, whatever, instead of trying to compare myself with them. I bring something unique. They bring something unique. It is okay for successful, strong women to be friends with other successful, strong women. You know, and I really think if our athletes can understand that at this age, which is why I tell them, stop comparing yourself and say I'm better than. You're going to negate what they're good at. Celebrate each other's victories and be cheerleaders for one another. You know, we are not pit against each other. But anyway, I don't know where that came from, but I just felt that was important to stick out there.
It's so true. Again, as I mentioned, I have a 15-year-old, so you're like, I'm like, man, I'm writing stuff down because I think it's such a valuable message to those girls, and I love that because you're right. I mean, you know, and I think today's society is even worse with the social media. Everything's compared. You know, we're comparing.
Yeah.
I mean, we're looking at what somebody's doing or what vacation. You know, it just goes on and on and on, right? It's just, but you know, I'm glad that's something that is being talked about more and more and more. So another thing, I mean, I know as a coach, as a young coach, what could you tell a young coach, but just somebody that may be struggling, right? That just getting into their career. What are some words of wisdom, maybe just from something that kind of that whole pushing through, get the grit, because you're obviously a great example of that. You pushed through and had a lot of grit. And I always, the thing I talk about through that though is I talk about on the other side of adversity is some great things. I mean, you know, you went through some tough times, but look at what all the accomplishments you have and the kids that you've reached. And I think that's a good question to ask you because you've been there, you've done it on both sides. What would you tell a young coach or a young person getting into the career?
Man, there's so many things. I would say one, I mean, my personal testimony of that is I want to please the Lord. Like, that is important to me. My faith is important to me. And I have to be okay with people being upset with me because I can't please them all. Like you cannot go into this profession as a people pleaser. You will crumble right off the bat because you can appease them for a while, but at some point you're going to come to a headway and there's going to be somebody that you cannot please, whether it be a player, a parent, administrator, a community member, an alumni. Like there's going to be someone. You have to be okay with that. And that's like, I mean, there's Colossians 3:23, whatever you do in work or do you do it for the Lord and not for man. Like I have to stay rooted. Somebody's joining us. I have to be rooted in that or I'm going to struggle, you know, but you know, maybe that's not their thing and that's not what's going to get them through. I would just encourage them to not try to people please. You have to come in with that. Be committed to what you're doing. Be confident in what you're doing. If you're not sure about what you're doing, everybody sniffs it out. Especially kids. Kids aren't dumb. Like they know if you're winging it.
Right.
If I go into a practice and I'm not prepared, they're going to know because I'm so structured, loosely structured. Like we have our plan. If I go in and I'm like, let's do such and such today, they're like, did you put any time into this? Like they're not dumb. So
right.
Be prepared, which helps you be confident. Know who you are. Don't change who you are to try to please anybody else. Like if you find yourself doing that, you're either A, in the wrong profession or at the wrong place.
No, I think it's a great point because you're so right. I mean, you know, gosh, I think of, you know, just in a lot of ways, but I can't imagine as a coach if you don't have, because you're always got something that, like you said, either a community member, a parent. It seems like there's always somebody that's wanting to tell you how we could do it better and you should do it better or whatever the case may be. But that's great advice because I think that's in life in general. You know, I think, you know, which I love what you said about your faith, right? I mean, God, you know, there's a plan for us, right? And we just got to be good stewards of it. And if we're doing what we feel is right, but we're never, like we said, we never can make everybody happy. And I think that's a great point. But Coach, I mean, I know you and I could probably talk for another hour on different things because you've got such a great story, and I love what you're doing with these young people, and your husband too. Casey does some amazing things with with youth and your sons. Both of your sons are doing some great things. I know y'all got some exciting things over the summer with a lot going on. And I want to mention the summer real quick. Do you have any summer camps? You have anything like that? What's going on? I know there's always seems like coaches are pretty busy over the summers.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have our team workouts throughout the summer. We go pretty light after the showcase because, we go play in the TABC showcase. After that, we go pretty light. But we do have our summer camp for, our ages are 1st grade through 9th grade, girls. It's all girl camp, which I have to share this. I know we're probably we probably ran out of time a long time ago. But, when I was in Georgetown growing up, I wanted to go to basketball camp. I don't know if I've ever told Rhonda this story, but I wanted to go to basketball camp. And my dad, I saw it advertised in the paper because that's where we used to find out things. There was no phone. And I was like, Dad, there's basketball camp. I want to go. I think I was 9. So Dad takes me to go to basketball camp. And bless his heart, Rich Stevenson, he was running the camp. And he's passed away since then. But he looked at me and he said, I'm sorry, sweetheart. This camp is for boys only. I said, well, where's the girls' camp? And he said, there isn't one. And I was crushed. I was like, so I can't go, and he turned us away. So my dad built me a basketball goal in the backyard. We lived out on 5 acres of land. He put it out in the woods, cactus everywhere, trees everywhere. And this is where I would go to learn how to play the game at 9. Next summer, guess what? Same advertisement in the same paper. Dad, I want to go to basketball camp. He's like, I don't have the heart to tell her no. They're going to turn her away. But he takes me up to the same coach running the same camp. And he looks at me and he goes, you know what? We have 99 registered and we need one more. You can come. So I was the 100th camper at this camp. That was all boys and me. And I won like a free throw contest or something. I don't know. Of course, it was like, ooh, the girl won. Whatever. But, shortly after that is when Rhonda came to Georgetown. And she did camp. Because I, as a high school player, I helped with camp, and I just remember like that, seeing an all girls basketball camp happen during that time of my life. I'll never forget that, and so here, when I came to really even at Bowie, there was a co-ed camp. Like, no, we're doing a girls camp. The first year the numbers were low. The second year we ran that camp at Bowie, we had 120 kids. This year we'll average about 100 a year right now. But anyway, we have camp, all girls, 1st grade through 9th grade at Westlake High School. That's the week of June. It's June 15th, 16th, 17th. We do a 3-day camp. It's a couple hours in the morning. And then other than that, I'm a co-executive director of WYBA, which is Westlake Youth Basketball Association. Me and our boys coach, we run that together. We are doing a camp powered by Lone Star Hoops at one of our middle schools in July. So all of this can be found on our website. But so yeah, we've got two camps this summer. And
what is the website, Coach? What is the website to go find that?
You'd have to go to find them. Our camp would be, just go to Eanes ISD and look for the summer enrichment. Okay. That's where it would be, at the Eanes ISD website, and under summer enrichment, it has all of the camps listed. But other than that, just getting these girls ready for hopefully another state run.
That's awesome. Well, we're going to be cheering you on, and I'm super excited to watch what you do. But it's also really cool to hear what's going on behind the scenes, and because it is a game, right? And really, what you're doing behind the scenes is is really the most important. And I love to hear these kind of things and to share them with others of what all is being done. So. But Coach, thank you again for your time. I love what you're doing, and please continue the work. And if we can help in any way, guys, I will tell you this: support. If you get a chance to go out and watch a Westlake basketball game, they're quite an exciting team, and it sounds like next year is going to be even as exciting as it was this year. So, Coach, good luck to you, and again, thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes.
Hey guys, thanks so much for listening to No Options. If this episode spoke to you, please take a moment and leave a review. And more importantly, please share it with someone who may need to hear it. You can find more stories, resources, and ways to connect over at my website, tygibson.com. And that is Gibson with a P, TYGIPSON.com. Remember, no matter where you are, your story isn't over yet if you live like you have no options. I'll see you next time.
You know Ty Gibson is an entrepreneur, a relentless survivor. Did you know he's also a powerhouse speaker? After overcoming 3 transplants, juvenile diabetes, he built thriving businesses with one mantra: no options. Ty transforms adversity into action. His keynotes ignite audiences with real-world resilience and 30-plus years of sales mastery. Are you ready to inspire your team? Book Ty Gibson today as your next speaker. You can call 512-944-4780 or head over to tygibson.com. That's Gibson with a P. It's time for your event to share the motivation that is no options.